So, what's the worst superhero movie of all time? Well, there's a bunch of good candidates, but I'll give you my take on it. Hey there, this is Perch. What's the worst superhero movie of all time? I think, obviously this is in the eye of the beholder. I think there have been as many bad superhero movies as good. I think Steel and Catwoman were absolutely terrible. I think the Fantastic Four Trank version was awful. I think certainly go further back to like the original Captain America or the older Captain America, not the current MCU version. I think that was awful. I think the Thor that showed up in the Hulk when it was the Hulk and the Thor as a TV movie, but that was a miserable Thor. That was nothing good about that. But I think there have been a lot of bad movies out there. I for me, I think what makes I can usually it's not like I can find anything good in any movie. That's not true. I sat through Catwoman and was just like, this is an awful film, no matter how you cut it. But there is, to me, what makes a truly bad movie or a memorably bad movie is when there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of opportunity to do something really incredible and amazing, and the filmmakers just blow it badly and give us something that fails to live up to its potential in any way, and also do damage. So I mean, the funny part, so you can look at Steel, the Shaq Steel version, and that's a bad movie. I mean, no matter how you cut it, that's a bad movie. But it didn't. Obviously it hurt the chances of Steel 2. But what it didn't do was it didn't kill off the chance of there being more Superman movies. It didn't kill off the chance of it didn't kill the line. It killed a sequel. And I think that's where you look at some superhero movies as being destructive. I think the Trank FF movie with uh, the most recent one. That movie was bad to the point of it won't it killed off the chance for Fox to do more Fantastic Four movies and ultimately just sell the whole line off to Marvel or to Disney. But I think if you're using that criteria, the criteria I just outlined, then probably one of the worst films is going to be Justice League because it it basically made a really big uphill climb for Wonder Woman and for Aquaman. Now they moved past it, but it really put those movies behind the eight ball of being successful. Aquaman wound up being a fun, good movie on its own. Wonder Woman was a great movie, but will there be another Superman movie? It seems unlikely. I mean, there will be one, but not without a reboot and a bunch of shuffling around and changes. Will there be more Ben Affleck Batman? Well, already we know the answer is no. The Flash is trying to get off the ground, but Warner Brothers, now AT&T, would have to be out of their minds to do a Flash movie with this actor. The same thing can be said of the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds. That movie uh, bombed in such a fashion that there won't be another. There wouldn't be more Green Lantern movies. They were clearly setting up for a sequel with Sinestro and other things. They clearly wanted to do more Green Lantern, but it was bad enough that it completely derailed those plans. And it's not like Shaq as Steel or Halle Berry as Catwoman. There was not. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's somebody in that movie who thought we'll be doing a sequel and they'll do 10 films of Shaq here. I can't. I don't know if that was somebody in the studio's plan, but nobody who wasn't on crack believed that was going to be the case. They all knew that it wasn't going to go that way. So, but with Justice League and with Green Lantern, both those films and Fantastic Four, all of those films fully intended there to be more, more films, more franchise, more. They were building a franchise. They put the money into it. They put millions of dollars into it. They kind of teed it up. I remember Green Lantern had been kind of soliciting to some extent some companies to get on board with the Green Lantern trilogy of films, and so those movies being so bad that it put an end to those plans. I think those are the ones that are be a good contender for worst superhero movies, because not only were they not a great movie, but they actually caused real financial or harm, real planned harm to the franchise. And so I think that's how I would rate it. Justice League is funny because it's not a good movie. It's not as bad a movie as some have said. You definitely get a Snyder versus Whedon feel to it that does not feel organic or good or any of those things. Steppenwolf is a terrible villain in that film, much like Ares is a terrible film in Wonder Woman, a terrible villain. The Wonder Woman is an amazing film if you think about it, because the movie manages to still be a good film and succeed despite the fact that the villain sucks in the end. That whole CGI, that whole bit is just not good. If you watch kind of those 5 minutes or so of that ending sequence, and now close your eyes and pretend the entire movie was that way, that movie tanked hard. So that's just kind of funny to kind of think about it that way. What does DC need to do? Unfortunately, DC and Time Warner, and now with AT&T, they're still they've got a lot of very weird cards, and actually, in a funny way, uh, they they would have been smart to just do what the MCU did. They, if you look at Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam, these films are have been successful in their own right as small little solo films that have kind of built up, a good group. And if you did 3 more years of these films like this, then you would probably get to a big team movie that could be successful. I mean, the plot and all the rest could still suck, but you'd have a higher chance of it actually going somewhere, because these, they built the groundwork, and the MCU did. You had a couple Iron Man films out, you had a Captain America movie, you had a Thor movie, you had Black Widow had been introduced in an Iron Man sequel, and you had all these things happen. You had a Hulk movie. You had all these things occur before we got to the Avengers, so you had some groundwork covered. But Time Warner was pushing to get their shared universe out, lickety split. So they went from Superman to BVS to Justice League, just one, two, three, and it was too fast. It suffered accordingly. I think that's the interesting thing about the comparison of the two, because people often like to say, well, DC has they tried the Marvel model and it didn't work for them. Well, the reality is they didn't try the Marvel model. They actually tried an accelerated kind of cheat version of the Marvel model, and what do you know? It did not work. So I just completely believe that if you would have gone, Superman, and then you would have gone Wonder Woman, and then you would have done, oh, I don't know, Aquaman, and then you do, Batman versus Superman, and then you do, a couple more, and then maybe Suicide Squad, and then Justice League. If you kind of shuffled around the order and made the movies better, certainly, I think you would have had a much better result. You would have people who attached onto these characters, but you just had too much, in no amount of time. I mean, we hadn't really seen Wonder Woman, we hadn't seen that much of Batman, and we hadn't seen anything of the Flash and Cyborg, and so it's like it came together, and Aquaman was new as well, for that matter. It just came together wrong, and we got the result we got. But that'd be my argument for worse. So I think if you're just talking pure quality, probably that original Captain America movie was just god awful. The Fantastic Four movie that nobody can find, the old one, the original one, that one is terrible. Catwoman, Steel, sure, definitely terrible. But I think if you're talking about opportunity blown, then I think you're talking Fantastic Four, you're talking uh, Justice League. I think now you're in that kind of territory of blowing it. A lot of people also like to point to the goofy, campy Batman Returns or those kinds of films. I mean, sure, they made a lot of money. They did hurt the franchise, absolutely, but it's hard to call that the worst film. Yeah, I think when you've got a film that actively does harm to the ability to make any kind of future films, that's the kicker right there. But I don't know. What do you think? Superman 4, that was also pretty damn awful. That did not do well. That Wolverine film that first introduced Deadpool. I mean, there's lots of candidates for garbage movies in there, but those are ones I think. I don't know. What do you think? What's your worst superhero movie? What's the one that you just think is awful? And I didn't cover it. I'm sure feels like I'm missing a really super obvious one. Besides Green Lantern, I didn't just mention that in the recap. Leave in the comments below. Love to know what you think. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notification. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.